On this vote, the yeas are 414, the nays are 11. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the question on the motion to reconsider the vote on the question of adoption of HRES 863, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will redesignate the motion.
Motion to reconsider the vote on adoption of House Resolution 863, offered by Mr. Moore of Utah.
The question is on the motion. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote. for your vote. On this vote, the yeas are 216, the nays are 211. The motion is adopted. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes. For what purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition? The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
member wish to change their vote? On this vote, the yeas are 214 and the nays are 213. The resolution is adopted. Pursuant to Section 2A of House Resolution 996, House Resolution 995 is hereby adopted.
The House will be in order. Will members please move their conversations outside? The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Members, move your conversations outside. Thank you. The House will be in order. First one. The chair will now entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition? The House will be in order.
Mr. Speaker, request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to remember the life of Rich Kelly of Center County. Rich was a tireless advocate for emergency service in Center County, and he never wavered on his dedication to helping others. Rich joined Mount Nittany Health System in 1991, working his way up to EMS manager, and is responsible for the significant development and growth of the department and EMS in the region. Over the years, he also served as Center County Coroner, Executive Director of Bellefonte EMS, Assistant Manager of Center Lifelink EMS, and was a flight paramedic for Geisinger Life Flight. He was active in the fire service, having served as a volunteer for the Undines, my own home department of Howard, and the Logan Fire Departments, where our paths cross, and I consider Rich and his wife, Teresa, dear friends, and his passing is a tragic loss. His contagious personality and cheerful sense of humor will be missed across Center County for years to come. Scripture in 1 Thessalonians 4:13-18 instructs us with these words: "Brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope." Rich Kelly lived his life dedicated to service and caring for others in a way that brought hope to so many. Let us find peace, having known Rich Kelly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, recognized for 1 minute, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to discuss how the House Republicans make the border crisis worse to harm America. Last week, they failed in their political stunt to impeach Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. There was no reason at all to do this in the first place. Then they failed to pass an appropriations bill because they did not include border security funding. But let's be honest, Republicans are not interested in border security. Their master, Donald Trump, told them to do nothing so he could use it as an election ploy. So they are allowing more undocumented immigrants to enter this country, and they're allowing dangerous fentanyl and other drugs to threaten the lives of Americans. They do it so this can be the kiss the feet of their boss and fearless leader. And they are robbing resources and funding from hardworking Americans to do it. It is an example of cowardice that has no equal in America. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to honor a true American hero who gave his life while keeping my community safe. On Thursday, February 8, a violent criminal opened fire during a traffic stop. He put Blount County Deputy Shelby Eggers in the hospital and killed Deputy Greg McCowan, who was 43 years old. McCowan was known for being a loving man and a brave officer. His family was the light of his life, Mr. Speaker, and he loved them dearly. His fellow deputies knew that they could count on Deputy McCowan when he was serving alongside them. One of his colleagues described him as one of those guys you always wanted on your side. In 2021, he received the Sheriff's Office Life-Saving Award for rescuing a man from a burning vehicle. And I want to give my sincere condolences and prayers of healing to Greg's parents, Dallas, Elizabeth, and Jeff, his fiancee Leah, his children Kaylee and Caden, Leah's children, Kaven and Jacob, his granddaughter Ella, his sister Charity, and everyone else who knew and loved him. I also want to thank a very good friend of mine, Blount County Sheriff Jimbo Barong, for his leadership through this tragedy. He's a good friend of mine, and I know he has been working so hard to take care of his department and deal with this incredible loss. Earlier today, they caught the murderer, and it was due to East Tennessee's law enforcement tireless work to bring him to justice. We can never forget exactly how much our law enforcement sacrificed to keep us safe every day, Mr. Speaker. My prayer is that this never happens to any of y'all's communities. Thank you, and I yield the remainder of my time.
Thank you. For what purposes does the gentlewoman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, we mark the first anniversary of the shooting at Michigan State University that took the lives of Ariel Anderson, Brian Frazier, and Alexandria Verner, and physically injured 5 others. I spent today's anniversary on campus in East Lansing, where I saw firsthand how the pain and trauma of that terrible day continues to reverberate throughout the Spartan community. I was heartened to see so many people turn their emotions into action through the day of service at the Hanna Community Center at the International Center. As a member of Congress, as the first member of Congress that we can find who has faced 2 school shootings, both at MSU and at Oxford High School, I know too well how these events rip a hole in the lives of the community, one that remains long beyond the headlines. A place that's burned into my brain is the place I spent the night that evening a year ago, the East Lansing Police Department, in the hours-long manhunt that went on. It seemed fitting to go back today to thank them, the fire department, the first responders. We have responded in Michigan. In response to the MSU shooting, the Michigan legislature stepped up and passed the most robust and comprehensive gun safety legislation in our history. In our courts, we just recently convicted the mother of the shooter in the Oxford High School shooting. We are setting an example of how to respond when our kids are crying out for leadership. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purposes the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
For 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, you're recognized for 1 minute, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in remembrance of Paul Hamilton Ploger. Paul grew up in Darien, Georgia, before moving to Brunswick, where he finished high school at Glenn Academy. Following graduation in 1960, he was commissioned as an ensign in the United States Navy, and he was stationed in many different states across the country. After serving in the Navy, Paul, his wife Carol, and his children moved to South Carolina, where he worked as an engineer and systems analyst for Allied Chemical in Irmo. In 1975, Paul moved back to Georgia, where he worked for the American National Bank in Brunswick, and then began his association with Southeastern Bank in Darien in 1983 until his retirement in 2005. Paul was a devoted member of the Coastal Georgia Historical Society and the Brunswick Kiwanis Club, where he participated in projects to better the lives of children in the community. He also volunteered his time as a mentor for middle school students. Paul will be missed by all, and I send my condolences to his family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
For what purposes the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition? Without objection, recognized for 1 minute, ma'am.
Mr. Speaker, why does our country have a budget deficit? Answer, because America over the last 3 decades has been offshoring jobs and our productive wealth. The people of Ohio and the industrial Midwest overwhelmingly oppose ill-conceived foreign trade deals that have harmed millions of them. The harm began in 1993 when NAFTA was enacted. It deepened in 1994 when we joined the World Trade Organization, and the bottom dropped out in 2000 when the U.S. helped China get WTO benefits without trade reciprocity. Math tells the rest. Our trade deficit with the world racked up to $15 trillion since 1994 as our real wealth drained out. American manufacturing plunged by a third from 370,000 facilities in 1992 to 250,000 in 2017, and from 1993 to 2024, we lost 5.6 million manufacturing jobs. NAFTA, moreover, hurt our neighbors as much. It stimulated massive undocumented immigration from Mexico and Latin America, and the pact pitted millions of unsubsidized Mexican white corn farmers against subsidized U.S. corn. What America makes and grows America. Our challenge is to stay the course of small business creation here and investment right here in the USA. I yield back.
For what purposes does the gentleman from California seek recognition? Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every state in our country has been negatively impacted by the Biden administration's wide open border policies. Last week, I traveled to Cochise County, Arizona, with the Congressional Western Caucus and the Committee on Natural Resources to tour our southern border and discuss President Biden's border policies and how it's affecting our federal lands and parks. While in Arizona, my colleague Rep. Tom Tiffany and I decided to follow up on the story that James O'Keefe had exposed that alleged the Casa Elitis Ramada Hotel in Tucson was housing illegal immigrants at taxpayer expense. Congress has the right, of course, to exercise oversight as federal funds prop up these locations and the non-government organizations known as NGOs that are secretly housing these illegals. Congress has a right to see how American tax dollars are being spent. We have that accountability. Instead, we were denied access to even the parking lot, given no information, and they even called the sheriff's office on us. We'll be back. Congress must immediately investigate and hold on-site hearings and get down to this. These NGOs that wrap themselves in charity and in religion in some cases are making a lot of money off this and are actually undermining the security of our country by trying to move people as fast as they can into this process. These NGOs must publicly testify before Congress and, more importantly, the American public about how our tax dollars are being used and what for. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Michigan seek recognition?
To address the House for 1 minute and extend my remarks.
Without objection for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise from this chamber here in the U.S. House of Representatives to recognize 44 days of fitness that has taken place in a humble and independent gym called Burn Fitness. For 44 days, incredible people from across Oakland County have been participating in a fitness competition, engaging in spirited activity, spirited training, and I have been so pleased to be a part of that competition. And what we say all the time here in Congress as your representative, that we are really representing the best of Michigan. And so while I cannot be with you all tomorrow for the 45th day of this competition, please know that I am rooting for Sweet Caroline's. I am rooting for a great final workout, and know that you will all make us proud. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to request unanimous consent to address the House floor for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the lives of 5 United States Marines lost in an H-53 helicopter crash in San Diego, California last week. These young men embodied what it means to be military pilots and U.S. Marines. As aviators, we know that risks, even during routine training missions, are part of the job. Our nation will be forever indebted for their sacrifice. Captain Jack Casey, a 2019 graduate of the Virginia Military Institute from Dover, New Hampshire. He was 26. Captain Miguel Nava, a United States Naval Academy graduate from Traverse City, Michigan. He was 28. Captain Benjamin Moulton from Emmett, Idaho. He was 27. Lance Corporal Donovan Davis from Olathe, Kansas. He was 21. And Sergeant Alec Langan from Chandler, Arizona. He was 23. These 5 Marines will forever be remembered in the military aviation community. Please keep their family and friends in your prayers. We are eternally grateful for their service and sacrifice for our great nation. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, it is with great respect that I rise today to celebrate Black History Month and its 2024 theme, African Americans and the Arts. This theme reflects on the important work of the African American artists who preserve history, enrich communities, and create empowerment through the visual and performing arts. Throughout the years, Northwest Indiana has been home to many such noteworthy and inspiring art-based organizations, including the West Side Theater Guild, Marshall J. Gardner Center for the Arts, the Glenn Theater, the Miller Beach Arts and Creative District, the Gary Theater Ensemble, and the Morning Bishop Playhouse Theater. Mr. Speaker, please join me in honoring the countless African American artists in Northwest Indiana and across our country for their profound passion, creativity, and perseverance to enrich our culture and our quality of life. Mr. Speaker, I thank you and I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, for 1 minute, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, here we go again. Not even a week after my Republican colleagues failed to advance their unconstitutional impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas, House Republicans again put critical House business on hold while they wasted precious time on another meaningless impeachment vote. Mr. Speaker, the list of things this House majority has ignored is long and only getting longer. House Republicans have failed to pass the key bills needed to avoid a government shutdown on March. Congress still needs to reauthorize the FAA bill to improve air travel and safety. We need to reauthorize FISA to bolster our national security. House Republicans need to provide critical military aid to our allies in Ukraine and Israel. And the civilians in Gaza and Ukraine need life-saving humanitarian aid as soon as possible. House Republicans can't pass or haven't passed any of these critical bills. I'm calling on my House Republican colleagues to get serious and to let us get back to doing the work the American people need us to get done. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Seek permission to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the life and legacy of Mayor Irma Anderson, a trailblazing leader within Contra Costa County. Mayor Anderson, who passed away at the age of 93, leaves behind an indelible legacy as mayor, nurse, and community advocate. After working for Contra Costa County Health Department for 20 years, Mayor Anderson's commitment to service led her to make history as the first black woman to serve as a Richmond City Council member and the first black woman to be elected mayor of a major California city. Mayor Anderson's career in public service was characterized by her spirit for advocacy and commitment to giving voice to the underrepresented. She developed a historic partnership with the West Contra Costa Unified School District. Mayor Anderson will be remembered for her decades of service to Contra Costa County and her genuine spirit of kindness and compassion. I'd like to extend my deepest sympathies to Mayor Anderson's loved ones who are here in the room today. I know they and the people of Contra Costa County will join us in celebrating her life and legacy. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, ma'am.
First, Mr. Speaker, let me pay tribute to the Congressional Black Caucus and the managers tonight for honoring Black History Month, of which I will look forward to participating in the month of February to honor the great history and excellence of African Americans. But at this time, I want to call upon Speaker Johnson to do his work. There is a $60 billion bill that will help us fund the desperate people of Ukraine and Gaza and Israel and Taiwan, and be able to help the Palestinian families. It is ready, having been voted on in the early hours of this morning from the Senate. Let the House do its job, do its will. Let us vote. 300 of us will vote to push that legislation forward. But yet tonight, we did a foolish thing, and that is to pass an impeachment of a very qualified and effective Secretary of Homeland Security. Do your job, Mr. Secretary. Do not be impacted, Secretary Mayorkas, by this false attempt to diminish you. Help us as we work toward making the border safe, and that's the way we do it, by doing our job and passing also the funding bill that has been put forward. I ask my colleagues, let's do our job. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition? Without objection, you're recognized for 1 minute, sir.
Mr. Speaker, Eastern North Carolina's resilience and potential have drawn national leaders' attention. Recently, Interior Secretary Deb Haaland visited the Pocassin Lakes National Wildlife Refuge. We're grateful for her presence and the announcement of $1.4 million for the Scuppernong River Boardwalk renovation. This investment reflects our collective efforts towards a vibrant future for Eastern North Carolina. Let's continue working together to ensure the voices and needs of Terrell County and the East are heard and addressed nationally. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 9th, 2023, the gentlewoman from Florida, Mrs. Phyllis McCormick, is recognized for 60 minutes as a designee of the Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include any extraneous material on the subject of the special order hour. It is with great honor that I rise today.
Yeah, without objection.
It is a great honor that I rise today to co-anchor the CBC Special Order Hour along with my distinguished colleague, Representative Jonathan Jackson. For the next 60 minutes, members of the CBC have an opportunity to speak directly to the evolution of Black excellence throughout history, an issue of great importance to the Congressional Black Caucus, Congress, and the constituents we represent in all of America. As we celebrate the evolution of Black excellence, I rise today to pay homage to the significant events and trailblazers who played a central role in shaping South Florida's history. In Fort Lauderdale, you can find the historic Sistrunk neighborhood, what we've known to be the heart and soul of the city. Since the very beginning, this vibrant and beloved neighborhood has been the epicenter of Broward County's Black culture and heritage. Sistrunk's early days can be traced back to the first individuals from Georgia, South Carolina, and the Bahamas who migrated to the region. Some of the neighborhood's earliest inhabitants were railroad workers who resided in shanties prior to the beginning of the 20th century. After the railroad tracks were finalized, some workers found other employment and became Fort Lauderdale residents, once the city was officially incorporated in 1911. If you take a trip down the neighborhood, you'll find yourself on Sistrunk Boulevard, which is named after the trailblazer who changed the trajectory of our region for the better. First born in 1891, Dr. James Franklin Sistrunk is a pioneer whom our community owes a debt of gratitude. He graduated from Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee. Dr. Sistrunk later served his nation in World War I before relocating to Dunham to practice medicine. He later moved to Fort Lauderdale. Despite being a qualified surgeon, the color of his skin prevented him from working in white hospitals. In 1938, he joined Dr. Von D. Mizell to establish Fort Lauderdale's first medical facility to treat Black patients, Providence Hospital. It opened after a farm truck carrying dozens of Black workers overturned near a whites-only hospital. The workers were told that they could only receive treatment outside. Once again, let me repeat that. The Black workers could only receive treatment outside. During his 44 years of practice, Dr. Sistrunk delivered over 5,000 babies. Throughout Broward, Dr. Sistrunk would attend to patients in their homes and assist those who were financially strained. After the desegregation of public hospitals, Dr. Sistrunk became an active member of Broward General Hospital. This summer, I visited the Holy Cross Healthcare Center, located at the YMCA Mizell Community Center. It sits on historic land where Providence Hospital once stood, and is building on its legacy in providing accessible health care. As we celebrate Black excellence, I'm honored to pay tribute to Dr. James Franklin Sistrunk, who transformed the health of Broward County in more ways than one. It is now my honor to yield to my colleague, Donald Payne from New Jersey.
Speaker, first, let me thank the gentlewoman from Florida for her leadership in this Congress on these important special order hours that the CBC have been involved in. She's done an exemplary job in making sure she's able to rally the cattle and keep them in order. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to discuss the evolution of Black excellence during Black History Month. I've said on this floor that the African American story is the greatest success story in our country's history. And we are here to highlight some of those many examples of that success. But first, I want to discuss why it is important to have this discussion. Black excellence is a term born out of the difficulties Black Americans have faced since the very beginning. It is a term that helps change the historical perception of Black America. And it focuses on the millions of Black Americans that have helped change that perspective. Since the first Africans set forth on American soil, we have fought for everything that we have in this country. First, we had to fight for the right to be considered people. Then we had to fight to make sure the promises of the Constitution applied to us. And we are still fighting those fights every single day. In essence, Black excellence is not a series of actions. It is a state of being that evolved from struggle. It is a response to critics, and it is a mantra that reminds millions of Black children and teens that there are doors open to them that were closed to their ancestors. Usually Black history and Black excellence focuses on the most famous Black Americans, like Frederick Douglass, Dr. Martin Luther King, Shirley Chisholm, Jesse Owens, Maya Angelou, Michael Jordan, and Oprah Winfrey. However, history is filled with Black Americans who need to be recognized more often. Americans like Bayard Rustin, who organized the March on Washington, Bessie Coleman, the world's first licensed Black pilot, Alice Coachman, the first Black woman to win an Olympic gold medal, Benjamin Davis Sr., the first Black general in the U.S. Army, Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler, the first Black woman to earn a medical degree in the U.S., and Frederick McKinley Jones, a Black inventor who made it possible to transport blood and donated organs across this country. His invention alone saved tens of thousands of lives. Today, Black Americans carry on their tradition of excellence in a variety of fields and professions. Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett helped create a COVID-19 vaccine. Vincent Glover was the first Black astronaut to live and work on the International Space Station for an extended period of time. Rashida Jones is the president of MSNBC and is the first Black executive to run a major news network. Brian Stevenson, executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative, has helped hundreds of wrongly convicted Americans get the justice and freedom they deserve. Tristan Walker co-founded an organization to help minority students get jobs with the country's leading technology firms. And today's Congressional Black Caucus is filled with political leaders who have triumphed over adversity. Their stories are exceptional examples of Black excellence. Yet, these Black Americans are only a few of the millions who have worked to help our communities and our country every day. And their work inspires African American school children everywhere to find their own means to achieve Black excellence. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
I'd like to thank the Honorable Donald Payne, and now I'd like to recognize our next speaker, Honorable Lucy McBath from Georgia.
Well, thank you. First, I'd like to say thank you so much to Representative Shifless McCormick. Thank you so much for diligently holding the Congressional Black Caucus Special Order Hour, and don't know what we would do without you. So thank you. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to participate in this evening's Special Order Hour celebrating the evolution of Black excellence throughout history. The stories and triumphs of Black Americans deserve to be commemorated actually all year long, but especially during Black History Month. The legacies of the men and women who shaped this nation's history impact our daily lives in countless ways. And it's my honor to take just a few moments to share highlights from the communities that I am proud to represent. I grew up in the heart of the civil rights movement. I was the baby in the stroller at the March on Washington, and my father was the president of the Illinois chapter of the NAACP, and my mother a nurse. My parents' teachings and example made such a strong impression on me, even as a little girl. And some of my fondest memories were watching them direct meetings in our home and prepare for marches while caring for and lifting up each and every person that they interacted with. And as the daughter of civil rights leaders, I know how hard fought our freedoms are. In Georgia, we proudly claim two of this nation's most prominent civil rights leaders, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the great Congressman John Lewis, whose presence and influence this legislative body misses every single day. But Georgia's legacy of Black excellence extends far beyond Atlanta and reaches every corner of our state in a multitude of ways. In my district, Georgia's 7th congressional district, I am proud of the incredible transformation in Black history that has taken place over the last 200 years. In Gwinnett County, Salem Missionary Baptist Church was founded in Lilburn around 1834 when slaves constructed a meeting place to gather and worship. Just 3 decades later, Hopewell Baptist Church was founded by freed slaves. The original building was destroyed in a fire in 1920, but its congregation continued to grow, and the current church building was dedicated in 1993. In the early 1920s, entrepreneur Robert Livesey purchased the McGuire Livesey House, a former plantation in South Gwinnett, and dubbed it the Promised Land. As the decades passed, this property became a thriving farm and Black business hub in the region, bringing a sense of independence and empowerment for the local Black community. In Lawrenceville, the Hooper Renwick School was the only Black public high school in Gwinnett County until the end of school segregation. The Hooper Renwick School merged with the Gwinnett County school system in the 1960s, and plans are currently underway to transition this building into a library and Black History Museum. And in Johns Creek, the Macedonia Cemetery is a historical site of deep local significance, the resting place of dozens of enslaved individuals and their descendants. Black Americans continue to excel and reach new heights through the leadership of notable figures in our community, whether it be in education, medicine, government, science, technology, sports, or fine arts. Other history makers in my district, such as Beauty Baldwin, was one of the first Black teachers at Central Gwinnett High School. She later served as the state's first Black female school superintendent, and Baldwin Elementary and the Gwinnett voter registrations and elections buildings are named in her honor. Everton Blair made history by becoming the youngest person and the first Black and LGBTQ+ person ever elected to the Gwinnett School Board. He graduated from Shiloh High School and Harvard University and was a policy fellow in the Obama administration. Nicole Love Hendrickson is the first African American and the third woman to serve as a Gwinnett County's chair. Hendrickson has issued proclamations celebrating Juneteenth and for the first time in Gwinnett's history, acknowledging the 1911 lynching of Charles Hale in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Gwinnett County District 3 Commissioner Jasper Watkins is the first African American in the armed forces and the state of Florida to achieve board certification with the American Society of Health Systems Pharmacist Nuclear Pharmacy Residency Program. This region's athletes and entertainers include Alvin Kamara, a Norcross native and running back for the New Orleans Saints, George Rogers, a Duluth native and Heisman Trophy winner, and Ezzard Charles, a Lawrenceville native who is widely regarded as the greatest light heavyweight boxer of all time. Migos, an American hip-hop trio composed of rappers Quavo, Offset, and Takeoff, were founded out of Lawrenceville in 2008. And I have been privileged to work with Quavo in my work to end gun violence following the tragic death of Takeoff in 2023. Mr. Speaker, I hope it's clear just how rich and diverse the history of Black Americans in my district truly is. Each and every day, men and women are making tremendous impact in shaping the future of our growing community. And as their Congresswoman, I am committed to doing my part to protect the rights that have been brought us thus far and advancing the progress that Black Americans continue to make every single day in America. And I will march on until victory is won. And I yield back.
Thank you so much, Honorable Lucy McBath, for your remarks. I would now like to recognize Congressman Glenn Ivey from Maryland.
I thank the representative for yielding and allowing me to participate in celebrating Black History Month. Mr. Speaker, this week I will be introducing the Frederick Douglass Congressional Gold Medal Act, which will honor Frederick Douglass with a long overdue expression of national appreciation and celebrate his legacy with a Congressional Gold Medal. I'm proud to offer this bipartisan legislation with my colleague, Congressman Andy Harris, whose district includes the historic birthplace of Mr. Douglass. Mr. Speaker, nearly 130 years since his passing, Frederick Douglass's remarkable life remains a beacon of inspiration to all Americans. Born into slavery on Maryland's Eastern Shore, Mr. Douglass overcame countless obstacles to become one of the most powerful and impactful figures in 19th century America. Douglass was enslaved for the first 2 decades of his life. During this period, he taught himself to read and write, skills which would later play a critical role in his life as an abolitionist and civil rights leader. In his 20s, Douglass escaped slavery, first to New York and then eventually settling in Massachusetts. Douglass dedicated the remainder of his life to furthering the cause of freedom for others in America. Beginning in the 1840s, Douglass became active in the abolitionist movement, often utilizing his profound oratory and writing skills to captivate and inform his audiences. As a writer and publisher, Frederick Douglass used the power of his written work to document the cruelty of slavery and push for abolition. He was the publisher of The North Star, a newspaper that he authored, and multiple autobiographies in which he shared the brutality of his enslavement in Maryland. Douglass exposed the oppression of enslaved Americans, speaking powerfully at abolition conventions and meeting with civic leaders. In 1852, Douglass delivered his famous 4th of July address in Rochester, New York. In this speech, Douglass asked the question, "What to the slave is the 4th of July?" While commending the ideals of the Founding Fathers, he also noted the hypocrisy of such ideals in relation to the treatment of enslaved Americans as he had been. Perhaps some of Douglass's most impactful achievements came as our nation was torn apart by the Civil War. Douglass was a key advocate in ensuring that the Civil War brought about the end of slavery in the United States As the war began, Douglas recruited African American men to join the Union Army, including his own sons. After the war, he fought for equal pay and equal treatment of African American soldiers. This advocacy included several meetings with President Abraham Lincoln at the White House, and to whom Douglas became a trusted confidant. After the war, Douglas continued his work as a dedicated fighter for equality and the extension of the rights of the U.S. Constitution to all Americans. He was prominent and a powerful advocate for the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. One of his most powerful post-war moments came in 1876 at the dedication of the Emancipation Memorial here in Lincoln Park in Washington, D.C., where Douglas delivered the keynote address. Later in his life, Douglas was also a public servant. He was appointed to several influential government posts, including U.S. Marshal for the District of Columbia, Recorder of Deeds, and Minister to Haiti. Frederick Douglass dedicated his life to furthering the cause of freedom in the United States. Few Americans have shaped our nation so profoundly and permanently as Frederick Douglass. To this very day, Douglass's message and principles remain a guiding light for our country as we continue to seek fulfillment of our nation's promise and potential for justice and equality. And yet, although the immeasurable impact of Frederick Douglass elevated him to the pantheon of some of the greatest Americans, he's never received a proper official commendation from Congress for his contribution to our nation. If awarded, this medal would be displayed at the National Museum of African American History and Culture right here in Washington, D.C., where Americans can view the medal and learn more about Douglass's legacy. It is long past time for Congress to bestow this honor upon an American whose indelible impact is still felt today and will continue to be felt for generations to come. Therefore, I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this bill. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you so much to my colleague, Glenn Ivey. I would like to yield this time to myself now. As we celebrate Black history, I rise today to recognize the cornerstone of Black achievement in America, historically Black colleges and universities known as HBCUs. As a proud alumni of Howard University, proud wife of a Howard Law graduate, and proud mother of a Howard University student, I speak from personal experience when I say that HBCUs have the transformative power to shape the leaders of tomorrow. HBCUs have a long and illustrious history of deeply intertwining with the struggle of civil rights and the fight for equality. From their inception during the era of segregation to the present day, these institutions have remained safe havens for where Black scholars, in spite of their systemic barriers, can flourish intellectually, academically, and culturally. My own journey to Congress, firmly rooted in the halls of Howard University, is a statement to the power of an HBCU education. It was at Howard University that I received not only a world-class education, but also absorbed the values of community, service, and social justice. It was at Howard University that I witnessed how education can be a catalyst for change and help others realize the American dream. HBCUs have generated half of the Black lawyers, 40% of Black engineers, 80% of Black judges, and 70% of Black doctors nationwide. They graduated 27% of Black Americans with bachelor's degrees in STEM subjects, putting them at the forefront of innovation. These figures demonstrate the undeniable impact of HBCUs in nurturing talent, fostering academic excellence, and empowering Black students to realize their fullest potentials. However, HBCUs are significant for reasons far beyond academics. They are a focal point for the preservation of culture, where the rich legacy and history of the Black community are honored. HBCUs serve as a catalyst for economic empowerment, providing disenfranchised groups with upward mobility. As we reflect on the importance of HBCUs, let us not forget the ongoing challenges they face, despite their contributions. HBCUs grapple with inadequate funding and crumbling infrastructures. It is incumbent upon us all, as advocates for equality and stewards of education, to ensure that HBCUs receive the support they need to continue shaping future leaders. I am grateful that the Biden-Harris administration has invested over $7 billion in HBCUs, unlocking opportunities for millions of Americans. HBCUs represent the very best of Black excellence. We can all draw inspiration from unwavering resilience that underpins these institutions. Their steadfast commitment to equality and greatness inspire us all to tear down barriers and build a future where everyone may openly follow their ambition regardless of their color of their skin. In closing, Mr. Speaker, you have heard from my distinguished colleagues about the evolution of Black excellence throughout history. As issues of great importance to the Congressional Black Caucus, our constituents, Congress, and all Americans tonight. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Does the gentlewoman have a motion?
I motion to adjourn the House at this time.
The question is on motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate.